Just
We're
need,
on.
just need to share it on Facebook.
Yeah, we're on. I'll share it now,
You
possibly.
are,
We're on.
just need to share it on Facebook.
Yeah, we're on. We're on.
Excellent. Um,
Oh, we
James,
are back.
yeah, we're on. How are you, sir?
I'm all right. How are you? How are you? Odd day today, got to be honest.
Weird.
Um, yeah, yeah, very odd day.
Do you want me to tell you how
Uh,
my day started?
Go on. You tell us how your day started.
I have sleep apnea, um, and I can't get on with the machine. Like the where you look like you're in Star Wars. Have you ever seen them? Like, you don't
Yeah,
know.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, and so I went to Rotherham Hospital this morning at 10 o'clock to have uh, a mold fitted for a jaw clamper, which a lot of people will be really requesting that I wear during. But yeah, it was like being a child again because like I don't know if you had braces, I had braces, and you had to like have the molds done, yeah, and you bite down on that stuff. So at 47, that's what we're doing today at 10 o'clock this morning, and I sit there like
Getting
all
your
pink,
teeth in.
yeah. So there's bits and bobs. So that was my start, yeah, exhilarating as it was. I can see
Yeah,
I've really caught you there
yeah,
with
yeah.
your.
Now you've topped mine there. I'm going to leave mine there then.
What did you do this morning?
No, it's well, obviously I've been busy on the kind of talking to some of the parents out there. Some odd cases with our favourite school where we're giving information, advice, and guidance, and then we're doing it in two different separate meetings because they won't talk to us, which again I find bizarre. However, we have heard on the rumour mill and from a number of different parents that um, our favourite school, which seems to have no issues at all, and the council's backed fully, have had to send improvement officer in for the past.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. So that's an interesting conversation, isn't it? But yeah, it's just crazy. I mean, we're kind of seeing all this amazing stuff being banded over on the local offer. Um, and there's a lot of good stuff. There's a lot of good stuff coming through at the moment. I think I've just looked at. I think you've shared it to me earlier. The new, um, brand new shiny marketing leaflet that's come out. And looking at kind of where things are going to be sitting in. I don't know if many people have seen the new. Maybe it's something we could share, put a link on.
yeah, I'll share it. I think the you know the marketing is new, but the content isn't. Um, I can see one thing that is an additionality since 2022. I mean, they'll talk about the family hubs and say that's an
Yeah, yeah,
additional.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
The family hubs they're not meeting the expectations of send support that they needed to meet. I people can talk all day long about it's an added resource and stuff, and yeah, in long term it might, but they've not done it right. They've not addressed it right, and I'll be damned if I'm going to sit here and tell them how to give them a bunch of ideas that I've already gave them when we worked for them. But
yeah, 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 yeah,
you know, it comes down to trust and it comes down to feeling, and it's about our parents' feel going into stuff. And the reality is that when that badge, when that organization is the one that's hurting you, it's very difficult to go to them for them to put their arms around you.
yeah,
You see,
absolutely. Yeah, yeah,
it's a very
yeah,
strange thing. And I think, when you look at an organization like Send Yes, or what I would consider proper parent groups, they're the people that have built up trust and relationships over years and years and years. And it's all about nuance and details, and you can't build that in a heartbeat. You
yeah,
can't
yeah,
do
yeah,
that. And the expectation is that trust will just be transferred over to family homes. or to various other outlets that they feel now as a local area that, oh, you should do this. And it's not happening because it's just not, there's no, it's all a front.
Yeah.
That's the front. I don't see the parent voice, the genuine conversation of how do we design this?
I
So the
think I
market,
think like yeah, I think I've got
you
some issues with the family hubs. I think I've got some issues with the early help process as well. I think when you're having as a parent, a SEN parent, when you're having to actually go somewhere, yeah, to try and make contact to get help, are you with me? When that becomes a kind of a barrier to me. For
yeah,
argument's sake, we're gonna meet a parent tomorrow. We're gonna have a bit of a live chat tomorrow with one of the parents. Two SEN children. Are you with me? Having to run around when you're trying to keep a job down. Because a lot of people seem to think that as SEN parents, we just love the idea of getting PIP and disability living allowance and never living again. You know what I mean? I think we've kind of living in these huge castles. You know what I mean? And the government's paying for it, and that's just not the case. It's the reality is not that. You know what I mean? You've got parents who are working hard 6 days, 7 days a week, 5 days a week. You know what I mean? And then they're trying to do what they're trying to do and bring some parents up, children up, and to have to go out to look for this kind of help, and it's tough enough going out and asking and admitting that you need help in the first place, but then having to walk through the door of a family hub or having to route through to find which telephone or which family hub you're under as well, which is another good one where you try route round and you're getting redirected here, there, and everywhere. I just can't see the logistics of it is broken. Are you with me? As opposed to having a service which is kind of is there on your doorstep where you can kind of bring them in and not just central. So like when you used to have the old community centres, for argument's sake, what in your little villages, in your little towns, that's a model which seems to is fallen by the wayside. But now we're doing family hubs or we're having high street kind of drop-in centres where you can go into the market or you can go through to bars. Parents are struggling as it is, you know what I mean? And I think all that's doing is that's creating a bigger barrier. I'm
I think there's so there are some in certain localities, but it for me the process of stepping over the line to ask for help or to receive early help or to whatever it is, the vast majority of the time now, because we live in a climate of fear generally.
yeah, yeah,
A lot of
absolutely, yeah,
people
yeah, yeah, yeah.
live in a climate of fear,
Well, some of
and
us do, yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah,
a lot do. And the way that we are suppressed, and I believe that as voice is not heard properly, is because you know genuine people who want to say something or want to have their voice heard are worried about consequences, and it's like this underlying element of like, don't rock the boat too much, or else you're going
yeah,
to end up
yeah, yeah,
in trouble and stuff. Um, but that trust element and going in, it's that trust has been abused and it's been mistreated so many times with Sen families. I'm not talking about any other families. Um, taking that step over that threshold is really monumentous. And I think for me, what we're seeing constantly is there's a perception that, oh, come and have your say, right? I'll have a voice, or do this consultation, do this. And what it is it's almost like your own voice is being used against you to push
yeah,
an
yeah,
agenda
yeah,
not like you want. Whereas that's the neutrality of a PCF that's required. And the other thing that's really annoyed me about this is it's like this particular leaflet that's gone up this last today is that it's listing and it's like it's listing Sendias, which don't sit comfortably with me. And to be honest with you, I might write this out and say, why? It's not logical for that service to be on that leaflet.
yeah,
I
yeah,
understand that
yeah,
final advice and guidance, but it's not a service for delivery.
yeah, Yeah, yeah,
You know what I
absolutely.
mean?
Yeah, 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 yeah,
See what's available when
yeah,
you're in when you're in the before you the assessment phase.
yeah.
And like, well, why are you directing them to send you? Surely to God, it should just be like inclusion services. It should be a local school. It should be a Senko's. They're not all listed on like the
No,
Senko's
no,
are not.
no, no. Yeah, yeah,
So it's
yeah,
almost like, and then on top of that, which I found really frustrating, not from my point of view, but I guess from the some people I know, is that Bernardo's is banged on there. Bernardo's, in the most part, lo and behold, they've had some funding in recent years
mhm.
from ICB
Yeah, yeah,
and then joint consortium, but we'll just leave that where it needs to be left. But Bernardo's is lottery funded, and one of the biggest assets that Bernardo's had was that its reputation was built on this is safe. This let us put our arms around you. The peer supporters, the peer people that they would lived experience. Parents will come into Priory campus, and there were no sniff at local authority because whether local authority like it or not, or ICB like it or not, the reality is if you hurt someone, if someone's hurting, they don't want to talk to you.
yeah,
Okay,
absolutely.
and
Yeah.
they don't want to hear that the local authority are our partners. They don't want to hear it. They can work it out as time goes on and slowly, but right now it just feels like, I'll be honest with you, it feels like Bernardo's are prepping themselves for when the lottery funding ends, that they'll get commissioned by Barnsley Local Authority or ICB. That's what it feels like to me. You know.
I think it's, to be fair though, I think it's also, I think it's slack. I think it's weak that a local authority outsources such an important piece of work to a charity. Are you with me?
Yeah.
Where's the money gone? Where's the money gone? What the local authority is drawing down? Are you with me? Where is that sent? Where is that money being spent? Do you know what I mean? Where's the money come from? Direct school grant. Where's the money come from? Send fund. You know what I mean? Where having to rely on a charity, which is kind of volunteer driven. I can't see Bernardo's having much staff. You know what I mean? They can't have much paid staff in Barnsley. How's
Well,
that?
the way that
How's that work?
Bernardo's is set up, and it's obviously within the voluntary sector, but the paid members of staff salaried, and a lot of people have enjoyed their work.
Yeah, yeah,
That's
yeah, yeah, yeah,
But you know, the issue that I have with it is that they're doing a piece of work with salaried members of staff, and they utilize peer mentoring and they utilize volunteers, and that's healthy. That's okay. I've had I believe that that is a model that's okay. The problem that I have is that for years the local authority are not interested. They've got no interest, they'll support it, but arms length. And the vast majority of parents are going there because it feels safe. It feels more like it's a different option. It's something
yeah, yeah,
different.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So from my perspective, to see it on there and to see how it's been promoted, and I found another document, it's just starting to feel uncomfortable. In fact, it's more than uncomfortable. And the other thing as well, James, the one thing I do know is that, Bernardo's staff made a complaint about me and our forum, which is just totally surreal. Just totally surreal. So what's gone on
It
there?
seems like there's an agenda and an end game which is coming into play. Yeah, yeah.
The problem that I have
I
with
think
that,
we've got it all. I think we've got it all wrong. I think we have it all wrong in. I think we've got it all wrong in Barnsley. I'm a strong advocate, and a lot of work we've done over the years, over a number of topics. I'm a strong believer communities can heal themselves. Do you know what I mean? I know why. I know why they don't do it. And I saw this quite kind of happen when we did the work around knife crime in Sheffield. Um, it's the balance, the imbalance of power. Do you know what I mean? If you had a community looking after itself, i.e., you had a community centre. In that community centre, you had people who potentially could have been on paid roles but have been trained. So, community members who know the community, they know the people. Within that, you've got your community volunteers. Yeah. And you've got a community supporting a community. Yeah. That to me is a healthy model, not subcontracting out to independent groups and subcontracting out to charities. You've got communities working closely together to support each other. Um, when we saw this happening in Sheffield and we approached the council in Sheffield with this about the crime work, they were happy to sit there and get all the ideas. Yeah, and that then stocked up and stocked up and stocked up. And then before you knew it, they launched a new violence reduction unit in Sheffield. Yeah, and communities again were at the bottom of that. But again, it was professionals getting paid to sit in rooms with nobody going into them. Because half the time in Sheffield, when you've got a lanyard on, the kids and that won't come anywhere near you. And that kind of where it feels like what we've got within. We have these family hubs, we have these beautiful Barnsley Council lanyards on, and they're sat there like they were doing at the nice magical event the other day, and they're all high fiving each other, but nobody's about. Yeah, so it's smoke and mirrors to me. It's just totally ineffective. Totally ineffective.
I, like I said, I think they've got to make a decision. Are you keeping services in house, or are you putting are you commissioning them out, and are you doing it that way? And the reality is that what is needed, what families need, is they need impartiality. That's just a need, and that impartiality. Don't get me wrong. I understand partnership work, but that's why I put up today's title, partnership question mark. I think we've got to get to brass and tacks. I think we've got to be willing to ask questions about what the local area professionals, not just the local authority, it's ICB, it's all the commission services around us, Compass P, all the people. It's not being critical about everybody. What it is it's saying what is partnership work and where's the real partnership that's missing, and that is with parents, which then
Yeah,
forms into co-production. And this is the thing is that people partnership work is not co-production. But when you start doing it with parents, that's more co-production. And what I feel is in Barnsley, I know in Barnsley, is that they've got this misguided interpretation of co-production. That if an organisation brings its parents, whether that's Ad Astra in Athersley or whether that's Short Breaks, have got a small amount of parents who are willing to set up a group. I'm not being funny, but it's pathetic. Not on the
yeah,
parents. It's pathetic that after 10 years of SEN Code of practice being in place, that all we can muster up as a local area, all the local authority can muster up is this safe area of let's have some parents join a consortium, let's follow that model, but make sure that they're almost uh, sort of chaperoned by the professionals and
yeah,
wrap it up on
yeah,
this
yeah, yeah,
false basis that they don't feel safe. The
yeah.
lack of safety in the local area has been created by about 15 send mothers and a few send dads. But yet they portray as it being people like myself and you who are willing to just speak the truth. When we're in meetings, when I'm in meetings, I can't speak for you, but I'm a consummate professional. I would always be professional.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah, I am.
But,
I am.
but what I see is that we've got this situation where that people genuinely think that they're co-producing. And I'll give you a really good example of this. This has been really preying on my mind, and that is there were 500k of funding, weren't there, that were advertised and glorified.
Yeah, yeah,
And we touched on it, but we know that some of that were for statutory services that must be delivered under code of practice for VI and hearing impaired. Okay, we
yes,
know
yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah,
It was
yeah,
and then another half of that money were just plowed into these send improvement teams, right? Where they were all going to get an assistant. Now, okay, okay. But you know what really, really gets my goat with that? And I've said it before and I'll say it again. Where was the co-production on the commissioning of that money? Where did people ask where parents thought that that money was best spent? So don't sit there and tell me that we listen to parents, that we have co-production at strategic level, because when it comes down to money, decent money, they do to, not with.
Oh, I mean,
That's what this
that's reflected. It's reflective in our tribunal figures. You know what I mean?
absolutely.
You can't. I always kind of makes me laugh a little bit with these send improvement officers. I've got to be honest. I've seen these posts kind of banging up left, right, and centre. Yeah, and I agree. Yes, we need send improvement officers. But when you're bringing and you're kind of recruiting send improvement officers who have worked within the local borough for the past 10, 15, 20 years, or have been a Senko in the local borough and know the Barnsley way of working, what are you improving on? You know what I mean? What are you improving on? Because it's broken. We know the system's broken in Barnsley. It's not getting any better. It's getting worse. You bring a send improvement officer who's been we're working with who's not bringing any fresh ideas in and only knows the Barnsley way of working. That when it gets to a tribunal, 85% have been ruled in favour of the parents or the carers because the local authority have acted unlawfully. You know
Hmm.
what I mean? How have you got to send it? What's the send improvement team? You
Well,
know, they only know the Barnsley way of working, and we know the Barnsley way of working most of the time is not lawful.
well, the true measure of the send improvement team, I know what the agenda was and where it worked. They got money from DFE and it related to safety valve, and it's increasing the last inspection said that we do not have high enough involvement in SEN support at school level, and we have too high levels EHCPs. And what that does is that highlights that parents don't believe in SEN support and they had to start to believe in it. So I understand the process of why they followed that. But the problem that I have with that is we've drastically risen in EHCPs in that 4 year time. Yeah, they might be claiming that there's some increase in SEN support, but there would be naturally an increase in
Yeah,
it.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
When I hear anecdotal reports that these send improvement officers are actually helping parents fill in ECNAs, that's that I've heard that. I know that to be true. Parents have told me that. And that's like, well, hang on a minute, you know, that's good. I'd doff my cap to the send improvement officers, like, nice one. You're looking out for real people doing real things. But what a crazy set of circumstances that we're in. And I think for me, then to start putting assistants in and all that, and it's just we have an obsession in Barnsley where we believe that the more staff we provide, that it will get better. But I always remember Jose Mourinho talking about Arsene Wenger, and he referred to him as being an expert in failure. Okay, and it's one of his highlight clips. If the people who are overseeing the management of these new projects have failed in the past, and we haven't had a refresh, and we haven't had a lot. So since the last inspection, there's been no
Yeah, yeah.
change. No change, apart from one additionality, and that was someone who's been here before as well. Two additionality who've been here before. We've had no new blood in the
No,
borough,
no.
right, at management level
Yeah, we're
to
doing it the
to
Barnsley way.
initiate. So
Yeah,
we might bring wonderful ex-Senkos in from Leeds or from Sheffield or wherever, who are full of energy and want a better, a different type of job. They're sick of working in schools, whatever. They might have a young family, whatever it is, whatever rationale they take for taking that stand. But if what you're reporting to is the Barnsley way, then they're just becoming frustrated. And
yeah,
I personally would imagine you'll start to see a turnover in them improvement officers' jobs. That's
yeah.
what I
Yeah,
do.
I agree. I agree. Yeah.
Because these are not,
Well, that,
the people who've taken them jobs, James, who've taken the send improvement jobs, the senior ones, or they're not run of the mill rubbish people. Not rubbish people, that's a silly language. They're not run of the mill average. Okay, yeah. A lot of them now are moving from full-time education delivery because they're tired. They might
yeah,
have, like I said,
yeah, yeah,
they might be near retirement, whatever context. They're not failures. Okay, they're not failures. The people who are finding it really difficult to manage life in the education system as full-time delivery. These are not inexperienced people that have filled these jobs. And what I would say is that I think they're probably looking there, and I reckon they're looking up and thinking, I reckon they're chomping at bit and thinking, really, really, is this what we're looking at? And the problem that I have with all of this autism stuff that's going on is that, and the problem I have with Bernardo's is stay in your lane. The
yeah.
lane that they
Absolutely.
created,
Yeah,
the lane that they created was a beautiful lane and it was a working model that worked. And what's happened now is they've taken more money and advanced from ICB. They've built another group, and for me, they're losing sight of what it is that their lane is. And and the other thing as well is I've had more, but I've seen this happening, but I've had more information, more messages from a whistleblower within the ICB. And what's happened is they're in their lane. They're in that lane for a reason. And your Bernardo staff and parents, brilliant, but they're not ICB workers. They're not people who are trained at expert level in autism and autism pathways. They're not. They're
Yeah,
not.
yeah.
And people who have got medical backgrounds, health backgrounds, and such like, it's clear from the messages that are coming through that they're being ignored. They're
I
being
find it odd.
ignored.
I find it odd. I really do find it odd how we kind of. Ah, I know. I'm not going to go into much detail about it on here, but I know of a case this week where I'm positively sure social workers have been stifled. Um, I know of, you can see the picture where a social worker goes in, does, I don't know, a CIM report or whatever it might be, all the best interests in heart. They have to pass it on to their line manager and it works its way up. And then before it comes down, it's been rewritten 4 times before it gets passed back to the parent. That's the reality of the situation we're in Barnsley. You know what I mean? And when you've got social care workers, you've got health professionals who have been silenced like that and being censored, it kind of makes you wonder what's going off. It really does make you wonder what's going off. And I know that's happening. You know what I mean? I'm not naive. I'm not stupid. I've seen it in practice. You know what I mean? I know people are sat there on that coal face with all the best intentions in the heart. You know what I mean? To do the job right, to make sure they're going out there, and then it goes up the ladder 2 or 3 steps. You know what I mean? And then you get into kind of scared of losing job territory, and it's then bounced back down again, and you've got a parent being told one thing, 2 weeks later they get a report through and it says something totally different. You know what I mean? That's the reality of the situation where we're at.
I don't think people truly understand the level and quality of social workers that we've lost in Barnsley. I think that, and that's not, I'm not being derogatory for people who currently are. I've got no involvement. I hear stories. It's all anecdotal, and I see evidence. I see stuff, and it makes me cringe. But some of the social workers, just in my short time that I've seen come and go, good people with good morals,
Yeah,
and the retention. And people say, "Oh, retention's hard." Well, you know what? If you're earning good money and you're not far from your hometown, and like most people, again, I'll say it's a predominantly female work industry, and predominantly, when you first in your first 3 to 4 years of the job, you're probably going to start looking at starting a family after that, and you're in your local area roughly. You're not wanting to travel. If you're a happy employee and you're good at your job, why wouldn't you stay?
yeah,
And no one's
yeah.
asking them questions, James. No one's asking them questions. Why have we got such a high turnover? And let me tell you this now. I hear stories where all that's happening, particularly in DCT and the disabled children's team and any social care work that's occurring with families is I was talking to someone a couple of days ago and there was referred to it as a short Section 17. And I've seen these short Section 17s in action. I've advocated, and it's like you can't have a short Section 17. It's a statutory process.
Yeah,
You
yeah, yeah,
can't just
yeah.
mass it. It's got to be thorough, a thorough welfare report about all family members. It's like you can't just turn up and say, we're going to do a short Section 17 in 4 sessions. It's absolutely
Mm.
ludicrous. And what they're
Well,
trying to say is that people are asking for things that they don't need. And it's like, well, who does that? Who does that? And yeah, there might be some people, but the fact of the matter is that you can't mess with a statutory survey, a statutory requirement. I saw some other day, a co-production thing, an advertisement for a co-production thing, right? And then it was shared on local offer. I'm going to read it to you now. And it made me absolute. cringe because the perception is that they're claiming that they're going to do co-production, right, on changing some documentation. And I was like, no, no, you can't do this. You can't work like this. It's not co-production. But let me read it to you, and I'll it were about it was within social care. Um, see now I can't even search. It's all different on PC, isn't it? Local offer. And what struck me about it is that it just all seems like it's being pushed through in preparation for an inspection.
No,
That's
no,
all
no.
it is. All it feels
It's like
like.
a tick
So
box exercise, don't it? It's a bit similar to early help as we see it at the moment.
look,
But
Carers Week 2025, shared on behalf of the Disabled Children's Team. This is it. Listen to this. The Disabled Children's Team listen to this for language as well. So this is nothing, this is not family or parent friendly language. I understand it because I live it. I love it and I live and
yeah,
whatever. But listen to this language. This is supposed to be a flight. This is supposed to be a thing for parents. The Disabled Children's Team are holding a schedule of events with the focus on co-producing new short breaks documentation, such as the referral form and informing future commission services for short break support. You tell me the average parent, and that's not intelligence, I'm just talking the average parent with language and lingo, they're going to be going, what?
yeah,
What?
yeah,
So let's get something else clear here as well. The lines have already been set. They're very specific lines. So to call it co-production is really, really tenuous
yeah,
because
yeah,
what
yeah,
it is more than anything is consultation, isn't it?
yeah.
They're specifically
Well, not
saying
even consultation, seeking approval. And if we don't get
the,
approval, we're doing it anyway. Yeah, yeah,
yeah. So the focus of the next event is the parent and carer needs assessment. And what they claim, what they're going to claim, right? So a parent and carer needs assessment is a statutory duty,
yes, yes, it is.
and
Yeah,
so
and not many people know about them either. Let's be honest.
and you're all entitled to one. You're all
Yeah,
entitled to one.
yeah,
If you've got a child we send, and you're entitled to have an assessment if you're struggling. They might refuse you, and they might give you grounds for refusal, but you've got a right to request.
yes,
And
yes.
the thing is that what are they going to co-produce? What are they going to do with a document? The document asks really simple, straightforward questions that paints a picture to determine what the parent needs. And they're making out as if they're going to co-produce a document. It's shocking. It's
Mm,
absolutely shocking. It's using the word co-production for the sake of using it.
no.
If
Well,
you
not,
haven't returned, listen to this. If you haven't returned your consent form for this co-production event, you will need to complete one on arrival. A consent form. Now that they're saying that consent is for them to use your details or whatever you say. What a crock, an absolute crock.
yeah, yeah,
Filling in a
yeah.
consent form. And somewhere on there it'll be, oh, you can't talk about the details of what's happening, or there'll be something on there. I can't believe how far we've fallen, James. I cannot believe it is literally like the people who are supposedly running Parent Voice, or what we've got is we've got a local authority running Parent Voice, and it's the most absurd thing in the whole world.
Local authority running parent voice with collaborators. That's what we have.
Yeah, it's the most absurd thing you can imagine. And you see what I hear is, and I got it from this person that's high up in one of the services, and it's that parents, or what we discussed, we were messaging, is that parents have been put in front and they're talking about lived experience, lived experience, lived experience, lived experience, and as if it's like that's all that matters,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah,
And if you are using certain parents who are being, in my opinion, exploited for being a parent because they're not fully not knowing what is happening, what the process is, then what happens is you front in and there's a level of bullying. And this particular member of staff said, I felt bullied. And what they're doing is they're putting parents in front of what they want to happen. Okay. And what's happening is they're saying basically if a parent says lived experience is top trumps, right? What an absolute
Mm.
we aren't slipped that far. Listen, I'm a massive advocate for parent voice. Massive. That's my number one go-to. I'm a massive advocate of co-production, but having lived experience don't mean that you can co-produce,
No.
right? Having lived experience is about driving empathy within you and then
Yeah, yeah.
leaving your bag, your emotional bag at the door, not bringing it in, not bringing it in and saying it and saying it. And what I believe, what I've seen, and I were on the end of it, and one of our members is that if you get a group of parents that echo chambers and they're
Yeah.
willing to, oh, they're getting fired up, they'll go in, and a lot of professionals now are that worried about not being seen to co-produce that these parents are being used as ammunition against other professionals to get in line. Get in line. I've got lived experience with the greatest respect, as I've said in my previous lives. I've got one experience. Yeah. And that does not mean you've got a voice for everybody. It means your voice is important, but no more and no less important than anybody else's. And this is what people don't understand. When you're working at individual co-production level, i.e. for your own child, EHCP, SEN support, short breaks, when it's that individual co-production, that's relevant. That's you and the workers, yeah? When it goes to group and strategic, you've got to forget about I've got to forget about Billy. It never bothered me. I saw the bigger picture. You've got to forget about your David or your Paula or whatever, right? You've got to forget about those things. You can't do it. But what's happened is the parents are being used as ammunition, and there's bullying going on. There's absolutely bullying going on. And what worries me is that parents don't realize they are being told share your lived experience, which is important. But when it starts getting used in a way that is to feather other nests, it's very dangerous.
Mm.
Very
When you
dangerous.
start talking, I think when you start talking emotions, um, I mean, we use in a lot of our campaign work. You stir the emotion up to start the dialect. You know what I mean? And get the debate going. When you're bringing that emotion into that level, that high level um, conversation, where you're trying to strategize and you're trying to shape change, it's important as a driver, but you can't use it to batter people around the head with. You're not going to get anywhere. You're going to have that
No,
bumping, and you're going to have that conflict. And we're right back to where we are now. And I think this is what a lot of these white papers, what the government and DfE are working on at the moment, about trying to bring parents and schools together and education together. They're taking into account that there's been too much time spent of being emotional, too much ego driven kind of conversations going off. If you can't, I mean, if you're not prepared either to sit there and take criticism as a service, which Barnes seemed to be completely inept at, how are you going to shape it? How are you going to move it forward? It's just not going to happen. You know what I mean? I know you've had some more emails. I'll let you get onto some of these emails. I think from some of our whistleblowers again, but um, yeah, if you're not prepared to take criticism and admit where it's going wrong and admit faults being caused, we're not going to go anywhere. It's just not going to happen.
no, and the problem that I have, the big problem I have, and I've had it from day one, is that I've always spoke about Sen co-production, and it's a rights and responsibilities driven agenda.
Yeah,
And as a parent, when you go into that individual co-production, when it's for your Johnny, right? You make your own choices on how you're gonna deal with people. You make your own choices, and you look at whether it's worth bending for that or not, or because to tribunal, or no, I want this or what. That's your choice. That's your
Yeah,
choice, and that's your right. And you read the code of practice, and you follow
and
the
rightly
line
so.
of
That is your right to do that. Yeah,
that's your
absolutely.
right.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, but when you're exercising them rights, you've got to understand that there's responsibilities that come with that you might not like. So people might start not liking you because that's how fickle world is. People might, and then a lot of parents will reflect and say, "I've become that same mum," or "I've become that same parent," and there's all this language that's around, and that's fine, and that's a battle that you shouldn't face, but it is where it is. When you start moving up to more to organizational um, co-production, and particularly strategic co-production, you can't be splitting hairs. You've got to look
Yeah.
when, particularly when you're at strategic level, James, and you know this, is you can't be talking about idealized situations where it's, oh well, code of practice said that. What you're doing is you're looking at we've got a pit of problems, we've got a hole of problems. How do we get ourselves out of it? And how are we going to nudge? And how are we going to take some rights? We're going to exercise as rights, but we're also going to show how we can show as responsibilities because we all know that there's some different types of parenting required. We know that. I can see
Yeah.
that. I can't deny that. I'm not going to sit here and say that that isn't the case. There are times when we have to question parenting, not the parents, but their parenting. We have to do that. I can't not say that, and I can't not support professionals in saying, well, sometimes, you've got to get stronger at parenting, or you've got to have a different style as time progresses. I know you didn't choose this life; it chose you, and you've got to kind of move with it. And I've had to do some things that I've had to parent my disabled child
But
in a
I
way
agree
that
with that. I agree with that to a certain level. I've got to, what I mean? That's absolutely fine, so long as that support is there. Do you know what I mean? You
of course,
can't expect a parent, what I mean, to try and change or to try and do things where you're trying to get to a level where you want to get them on the same pathway as you. If you're not prepared to put the hours in underneath, you know what I mean? If you're not prepared to have a system that's prepared to support them moving forward, and I don't mean Webster Stratton parenting courses, I mean proper support these parents emotionally, um, get them so that they're more empowered, they're more resilient to be able to move them forward. We have not got that in Barnsley. You know what I mean? You can't bring an early help in. Early help is a prime example of this. So you have these parents that are emotional, that the raw, that may have been banging against the school for months or days or weeks or years in some cases. Early help slips in. That service should be there to be able to help and support that parent, give them the skills, the knowledge, the empowerment they need to be able to move forward and get them onto the same path, onto the same road as you, to move in the same day. A bit like joining a motorway. Are you with me? Join and get on to join that motorway. When you've got early help that comes in and sits in your living room for an hour, one hour a week, just to tick a box,
yeah,
refers you nowhere, to do nothing, that parent is still left raw.
absolutely.
How are you ever gonna move that parent off that little side road onto the motorway to be able to kind of get forward and start doing everything? It's never going to happen. And then instead of what these parents then end up getting, being stuck on, I like these road metaphors, they're on the roundabout then. You know what I mean? They're never going to get off. You know what I mean? They become emotional. You've got your support groups that are set up like ours, and we hear it. You know what I mean? We'll take this phone calls at 10, half past 10, 11 o'clock at night off parents. You know what I mean? And they're in distress, they're distraught, literally distraught. And it's like, well, where's the service? You know what I mean? We're not a tick box. And this is what infuriates me. I absolutely agree. Parents, and to get that, change that, and modify that way of maybe parenting. Um, we've learned the hard way. We've gone in being that hard nosed parent at the beginning with his oldest son, and we've had all that pushback and kickback. You know what I mean? With then I'm coming with his youngest son, we didn't want to do that. You know what I mean? And then you could step away and you think to yourself, hang on, have I been mollycoddling him for, you know what I mean? Or have I wrapped him up in cotton wool? Nobody, and we've been through this process. Nobody's come in and sat in there and gone, right, let me hold your hand, let me guide you through this, let me show you what you're gonna do. Let me get my team around you, build the scaffolding around you. Let's kind of all get onto the same journey. Let's all board the same bus or whatever and get off that side road and get onto the motorway and move forward. It doesn't happen. It does not
You
happen
want
in
me to,
Barnsley.
you want me to like so the way I see it as well is that like it's it's a bit like mental health. You know, I've had times in my life where I've suffered with mental health issues, just anxiety and generalized stuff. I think if you're a sensitive person, that happens, and you know, and I struggle to meet anybody who had some level of mental health problems. But the interesting thing about mental health is when you don't have issues with your mental health, the last thing you really want to talk about is your mental health. Okay,
Yeah.
you just want to live your life because what mental health does is mental health stops you from living your life in the most part and to the level that you want to live it or the quality. But then when it you know it goes away and it's not at the absolute forefront, you don't really want to talk about it. You don't really want to go to therapy. You don't really want to do it. You just want to get on with your life. And
Absolutely.
and and, and what I find with special educational needs, and I'm not comparing them in the same way, but it's that culture, and I understand that. It's like at the moment, there's times, and this is the problem that I have with services. The real problem I have with services is that you can't come back we at the point of where you were last. You have to start again and you have
Yes.
to
Yeah. Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
called tell it once culture, which were fantastic in principle. You know, I'll give you an example within this example is I had a friend who said that they had a death within the Barnsley Borough, and the death and you know registration services and all that and everything that comes with it is really good. Someone told me it was really good. I don't quote me on that, but they said they had a really good experience. And the experience they had were tell it once experience. So they went through, they told it all once, and they gave them information, like all the stuff that needed to be told and all that. And every time they phoned up about another issue, that it were on the file, and the person read the file, and they knew where you were on that journey. Yeah, and someone who I knew, who I was close with, a friend, a mate, said it was a really good experience within a terrible experience. And what we always talked about in Send back 11 years ago, just before Code of Practice were published, after Children's Families Act, is let develop this tell it once concept where you come in and your
And no
HCP or
through.
you,
Go on.
yeah,
Keep going,
it's
Jonathan.
a tell it once process. And I think that's the greatest issue that I have with it all is that it doesn't feel like a tell it once process anymore. It's never really got to that point. It's tell it at every single transition in your life process.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
So, so what
Yeah.
happens is the frustration builds and the anger builds. The point that I'm making is that like with responsibility. So when you look at co-production, particularly not at individual level. Like I say, that's your choice. You make your choices. But when it's at strategic level, you've got to go in with an open mind. You've got to go in and say, these services can't deliver what the code of practice wants them to. Okay. So you've got to find the best possible outcome for it. And that's where you look at your own responsibilities. And I do think that within our service, within our system, I'm not ashamed to say this, and I'm not ashamed to say I do think that there are people who need more support in their parenting skills. I do believe that. I don't mean Webster Stratton. What I mean is that you don't know what you're doing when you have a kid anyway. Okay. Now, I look at my son. He was born very luckily into a dad who had a background in behavior management and levels of autism, and he had a mum that were an early years teacher that were advancing in a specialist provision. Like, you know, that's a great situation. So I count my blessings for Billy and stuff. But there were times when we were on our knees. Even though we knew stuff, we were on our knees and we needed
Yeah.
help.
Yeah.
And there were times when we were getting it wrong. And there were times where we thought, we're not being responsible enough here. We're not putting enough perimeters in here to let him go. And we're taking the easy options on occasions. I know we did that. I know we took the easy options because we were tired, because we were worn down, because we didn't feel listened to, because we weren't supported. All the things that are absolutely valid excuses. But when all said and done, our son were our responsibility. And I think that's the difficulty is and I hate this concept of building resilience and stuff. But when you have true parent voice and you have true peer mentoring, and this is what upsets me is I know some of the peer mentors down at Bernardo's who've worked with that, and they're brilliant, right? They're brilliant. And what they've done for families, these peer mentors have done is you couldn't write it because what I'll help you build on it. And we ain't got it. And what we've got is when we start to see parents become empowered, we live in an area that wants to flatten that because empowered parents means
Absolutely. Yeah.
distribution
Yeah.
of power. Empowerment means distribution of power. And whilever you can hang on to power, unfortunately, we live in an area that will. And it has the power to do it.
Mm.
So there's no part of me that's parent blaming. That's not what I'm saying. But I do think we have to recognize as weaknesses. There were times when my son were young and I had to say, I'm getting it wrong. I'm getting it wrong. But with regard to the strategic stuff and looking at what's been happening is you've got some fired up parents, you've got some emotional parents, you've got some frustrated parents, and I think they're being used. That's what I think. And I don't like it. I don't like it one iota. But I'm conscious that we are talking a lot about this, but this one particular comment from this person who's high up in the health services really struck a chord with what I've been saying. And the person contacted said that they've been pondering what since listening to our live
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah. Yeah.
last week, and it was something that occurred at this autism summit. I didn't even know there had been one. I'd love to have known about it. And there was supposed to be co-production, and it weren't entirely clear that it was actually co-production. Um, and what this person's saying, the meeting was badly run, and each meeting does with no movement or resolve going through each parts of the strategy. So this was through autism strategy,
Yeah.
and what this person is saying is this culture of around charities and around people, they've been given too much power and they don't have that specialist knowledge. And that's what's happened in my opinion with Bernardo's is with this autism strategy were basically handed over to them. And whilst I completely respect the work of the peer support work and everything, but they who says that you can speak on our behalves? I wouldn't speak on your behalf, James.
Yeah.
But
No. No. No.
but
No.
but me talking like this and a member of staff who's saying, why? So what this person's basically saying is they felt as though they couldn't speak. They felt as though they couldn't be honest because if they were honest, then what had happened is people would throw the parent card at you, and that's not what we want. We want open discussion. I'm trying to work around this. We are. It's uncomfortable, James.
Finding out. It's about finding a balance in it. Let's be fair.
It is because I think people think that we're out to cause trouble. That's what that's what kills me.
Mm.
And we're not. But people have got to be called out. If you're gonna go and you're gonna say that I'm the voice of parents, which you've got no right to say, and you're going to do it all behind closed doors in a clandestine way that's not in a way that is fully open and transparent with an invitation to everybody or an invitation. If you're part of that, then you've got to be open to the criticism that comes with it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I
Christ
agree.
knows I
Totally
would.
agree. Totally
Christ,
agree.
look at what they did to the forum. Look at
Yeah,
what people did to the forum. No one's pussyfooting around how we were treated, you know. But if you're going to go and say um, that you're the autism specialist parents, then when the autism strategy is not worth paper it's written on, and cabinet are having to do a task and finish group to identify allegedly just now that there's missing provisions, nah, you failed. Your
yeah.
co-production has failed. I don't really want to. Sometime after the meeting, feedback from this group was given to the steering group, and it was complete slating of the only two people who spoke up, which was this person and another person. So what we had then is apparently what's gone on is we've had Bernardo's and some of their parents going at these professionals, and then saying, that these parents said they didn't want to come back, and clearly, obviously, didn't understand what we were fighting for their children. So what this person's saying is we were there for the right reasons, and then uh, Bernardo's parents or the parents who were attending were saying we don't want them saying we don't want them saying these things. They're upsetting us, and I'm not siding with anybody, but this is what we've had. This is what's going on. And myself and another health colleague were raising these issues, the issues you talk of, and fight for, and where they're above. They just kept saying, "Why do you keep saying the same thing?" Came from. We were advocating for missing services, all the things I've discussed above. The workers and the parents group didn't offer any challenge, any real insight into what needs to be done. It's only now I'm thinking about this. Many of their ideas were autism friendly crossing patrols, etc. Weren't about strategic. So what this member of staff is saying is that it were
We're on
very.
about at strategic level. How do we reduce things like autism, referral waiting times? How do we do that? What do we need? What infrastructure? I mean, I don't know. I don't work in hospitals. I'd never know that. You know what I mean? I'd never know what that infrastructure is. But if we're not letting these professionals have their chance to be able to have that say, then yeah, there's something wrong. We're never going to get that common ground ever. But then again, you've got your parents working off emotions again.
You have, and it's not parent blaming this. What I'm talking about here is we've got to navigate these uncomfortable conversations. Just because you're a parent and you have opinions, and there might be excellent opinions, it don't mean you're right all the time. It don't mean that you can just flash the lived experience card and that's all it is. Co-production is about two sets of things. It's about the process and it's about respecting the process. It's not about demonizing it. If anybody, honest to God, if anybody has a right or had an agenda to absolutely slate the process in this borough, it's me. And I will never talk about the things that I've been through because, that's not why I do this. But if anybody were going to be on an agenda to destroy and to be destructive towards the process, I've got one of the biggest reasons in the borough. But I don't want that. I don't want what happened to me and to happen to others to happen again. So what you got to do, it's a bit like what happened in South Africa when they reached an agreement to change and to move forward. Everybody sat in the room and they all had to admit of the terrible things that they'd all done. The idea was that we have to be open and honest. And the thing is that you've got parents coming into meetings who are pouring their hearts out, yeah, and being told what they're doing will make a change, and it don't. And
Yeah,
and it's
yeah, yeah, yeah.
it's the Bernardo's parents who were left broken in pieces for doing what they were told to do, and that breaks me because that is the epitome of what co-production shouldn't be. And then you've got certain staff members who feel as though they're literally saying, feel like we were bullied. It was really upsetting at the time, but the more I process it, the more set up it feels. as if they'd pulled these parents off the street. They didn't question or ask anything. They didn't appear to understand the stated themes. No feedback, i.e., that wasn't okay. Parents aren't happy, etc., was given at the end of the day. It just said parents aren't happy. No feedback for weeks. And in fact, then a local authority member staff name is given with an ICB percent consent for 20 minutes to literally assassinate us in the health division. So basically, what's come from this is a particular local authority worker was given consent by a senior health worker to sit there and for 20 minutes absolutely assassinate and question these health workers that have been in there. And she's saying it were bullying. We were bullied by these staff members
Yeah,
because they spoke out, and
yeah.
it were done
That's
apparently. Shamefully, it was done in front of 20 plus people in the steering group. So they isolated these two staff and they annihilated them. What
yeah.
we're going
You're never going to find that common. You ain't going to find that common ground. It almost feels intentional. It feels like we've been pitted against each other, doesn't it? As opposed to having the parent voice and the kind of joint working. Let's keep us. You know what I mean? Let's get that dogfight going. You know what I mean? And while we're doing that, we'll be skimming out the tiller out the back. You know what I mean? It
everybody
feels
knows
intentional.
everybody knows where the problems are. Everybody, including them that are causing it. Everybody knows where the problems are, and I ain't getting legal letters to do the work of what other people should be getting. But everybody knows where the problems
Yeah,
are. And let me tell you now, our health services under the ICB are on their knees, and they're not listened to. And the care workers, they're not listened to. I'll tell you, I'll offer this opinion. This is an opinion. We've had an executive director of children's services in post now for over 3 years. Okay, she replaced Mel John Ross, who I worked quite closely with towards the end. In that 3 years, that person, executive director for children's services, that person has two tiers of management, education and social care. All I see, all I see, and I see a lot, and I've read a lot, and I was part of it, and I was in meetings up for the first 18 months of that tenure. All I see is someone who were brought in to basically work in social care, right? A classic example of this is that job used to be someone called Rachel Dickinson, Executive Director of Children's Services, slightly different title, but when we had Family Information Day at Metrodome, the 3 years that I saw it, I went to it when Rachel was there before she left. She was there, right? Not only was she there, but Margaret Libera were there, who were the old education service director. They were there. The mayor were there. A local politician had turned up. Your local
yeah,
council
yeah,
had turned
yeah,
up.
yeah,
Right? Nobody. The Family Information Day were always opened. It were opened by a person. So Sarah, who organised it, she'd ask maybe Rachel, executive, come and open it. And Rachel and Margaret would stay for a couple of hours, hour and a half, and they'd field questions, James. They'd field the
yeah, yeah,
questions,
yeah, yeah.
the difficult parts. Well, that's not there. And what I see is that we were in a difficult, really bad position with social care. And I see an executive director that come in to sort that out. And what I see is the headlines are there. This is not false accusations. Educational outcomes have dropped tremendously. You put some of them articles up, send stuff, youth offending team. All these things fall under you under education,
Yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
Under that education service directorship. And all I
Yeah.
see is that the executive director is only bothered. It seems to be. I don't see any presence in education. I don't see any commentary about saying, we're here for our send children, we're here this. I don't see it, James. And what I believe is that as a consequence of that, the partnership work is atrocious. And what I see is an ICB that they're basically not being allowed to have their say.
Which is really, really odd because I think we had this conversation before. A lot of the issues I see and our team sees, although the kind of the band up within education, are social care issues.
Yeah.
And I think we've lost the way. I think we've lost direction with social care in Barnsley slightly. When you have a social care team that's solely transfixed on only actually getting involved with a family if there's neglect and abuse within that family, that ain't social care. That's child protection. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's not social care. You look at the kind of the outcome and look at the description of what social care is, looking at the development of a child emotionally, physically, you know what I mean? And kind of protecting that. That's not happening in Barnsley. That's not happening now. And it's unfair to pass that across the schools to try and become social workers. You know what I mean? It's unfair to kind of pass that across. Um, it's just disjointed. EHC teams running around saying that. Um, well, a friend of mine, you probably know him, has just been challenging the EHC team now on that side of things and saying who's legally responsible for EHCPs. And the answer back was a local authority. Yeah, but who? You know what I mean? Who is legally responsible for writing these EHCPs? The local authority. You know what I mean? It's not us. We're EHC team. We're administrators. You know what I mean? To brand yourself as an EHC team with such a pivotal role in that child's life, to brand yourself as just an administrator. And then you have social care that, well, yeah, yeah, well, potentially there might be abuse going off or there might be something going off within a school, but we're not really that bothered about that. You know what I mean? We're not bothered about that. What we're bothered about is if you're doing it as a parent. You know what I mean? Then we'll come and see you. You know what I mean? But what we'll do is we'll give you too early help. We'll come and sit in your house for 11 weeks and tick a box for an hour and have a conversation with you and go, well, I don't know what to do next. You know what I mean? And fill a report out and then they've gone. The whole thing, it's broken. It don't, there's something not, I don't get it. I don't get it. You know what I mean?
My opinion on it all is what I've expressed already. It's that we don't really have services in Barnsley. It don't.
I
We,
absolutely agree. I absolutely agree. And I agree where you're coming from about parents having to take and shit. But when you've got that parent who's at the end of a journey a real, in some cases, traumatic journey and quite explosive journey, and that little booster's not underneath. Are you with me? To give them that little bit of a push, you know what I mean, and get them on the right trajectory. If that booster's not there, if that service is not there, what we doing? You know what
I
I mean?
know
What's going on?
the wider point that I am trying or was trying to make is that when it's at an individual level, you do what you do. When you go to the strategic level, which is what this is, you
Yeah, yeah,
can't just
yeah. I get that.
you
I
can't
get
just
that.
go in and bang your own drum. That's
No,
not what you.
no,
That's
no.
not what,
Absolutely.
and a lot of people are being told. A lot of parents are being told by certain people that that's what it is. Oh, we want you in there. You say what you think, don't you? It's like, yeah, but it's not doesn't help out. Say
Yeah,
what you think
yeah,
is
yeah,
is
yeah, yeah.
okay, perhaps at individual and then organizational level. But when you get to strategic level, it's not just what you think, it's what's best for the whole system. And I've never gone into any strategic meetings as a representative or as a presenter of information and pushed anything to do with my son. Very rarely have I ever used him as an example. I've had Sophia outside of me who co-ran the forum with me. I don't think people understand what that woman is dealing with. I don't think people understand what some of our parents, particularly parents who've got kids at Greenacre, what they're actually dealing with.
Yeah,
They're
yeah, yeah. I
managing,
agree.
what they're
Yeah,
managing, and now they're having to literally manage PAs and manage
yeah,
their weight, managing diets, managing equipment, managing applications for
yeah,
adaptations to
yeah,
up.
yeah.
Talking about some Mickey Mouse. Oh, I want some stars on row. I'm talking accessible toilets, accessible bathing facilities, and it's like
Oxygen. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
oxygen. Kids, you know, bloody burns on palliative care not being taken care of, not getting the right placement for them. And it absolutely grates on me because I think to myself, What we're doing is what I see with parent voice is being controlled by the local authority, and they're putting people in front of services. And these parents have got absolutely the right to speak of their situation, but we're not going out and spreading that fisherman's net wide enough. We're
Yeah,
not.
yeah. No, we're
We've
not. Yeah,
got someone saying to the Bernardo's parents, "You're the only autism group in the town." What an absolute crock that is.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
You're an autism group. I'm an autism group. Just because we're not specific on it, don't mean that we don't do it. And this is where parent voice gets so nobody's doing it. Where's the black and ethnic minority voice in Send? There ain't any.
no,
We've got a really high Polish population, and we've got a Polish or Eastern European Send families. No voice, not
yeah,
one voice. No one ever talks about it. Where is it, James? It's all so orchestrated just to push through some agendas. Bang, 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 bang. See it as a work stream, not as a culture.
yeah,
And that's what.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And this is the road to the biggest problems we face. And if you look at that document that they put up, the thing that made me laugh the most, well, when it says while you are waiting, so he says the 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 services that are available while you're waiting for assessment. And it proper tickle me because what I can't wait for is I can't wait for Back to the Future 2. So next week, when they're going to publish the one which says, it's almost like I want the trailer, when they publish the one that said, when you've got a diagnosis. Because all I've my experience is doing Jack, doing
Yeah,
Jack.
agree.
So
Yeah.
I can't wait to see
I like
that.
the bit. I like the bit on the leaflet where it says you don't have to have a diagnosis to access services and help. It's not what
Yeah,
they're being. It's not what, it's not what parents are being told.
yeah, but if you
Because they
wait,
show the services that leaflet.
why would you put that on if
I
the,
know.
if the leaflet's about waiting for assessment? And there could be a rather large percentage of people that haven't got a diagnosis at that point if the title of the document is waiting for an assessment. I need to make sure I'm getting this right here, or else they're going to rip me. People are going to tell me what. But when I saw it, it said here that while waiting for diagnosis, our Barnsley's autism offer, it's an offer now, provides essential support and resources for families. Take a look. The brilliant parent who was written on it, just like, yeah, it's 2 years. Or whether she was just put, yeah, 2 years. It's like, I love stuff like that when people are just honest. So, yeah, it's this thing where it's shared. Oh, Jesus Christ. While waiting for you, let me put it up and just have a quick. We'll just do a quick read of it. So, a diagnosis is often not required to access support. Right. What is early help?
Yeah.
Is that a, is that
Yeah.
like a
So you
film?
go to them and go, can I access you, please? They go, no, you're not going to diagnose.
He's so true in it. He's so true. It's like being in a Marx Brothers film. It's just so like um, carry on saying that's what it feels.
Yeah, God.
Oh, don't forget, the local offer provides a list of the support options you can access while waiting for an assessment. You are not alone in this. There are people and organizations ready to help. What is an early help assessment?
11 weeks sat in your living room.
Yeah,
About as
go
much
on.
use as chocolate Figo. That I'm gonna no, I'll take that back. You know what I mean? There's good and bad early helps. There's,
There
you know what
is.
I mean? I've worked with some really great EHA workers and some really poor ones.
It is. It is. It's just like this presentation. It's like it. So Barnsley Education Inclusion Services. So Barnsley 0 to 19 public health nursing. I can't look at that and not laugh because my son was diagnosed at 2, and I've been to that. Me and my ex-wife have been to that service. It's like we just need some help. We need some help because he's got, some issues with accessing health. He needs some support, what have you. He's got low vitamin D, whatever, just like stuff
Yeah,
that you
yeah.
just struggles with a GP. He gets scared. It's mental how bad it is, and it is classic autistic. I was like, oh no, we can't help you. And I sat there and I was like, for ages, I was talking to these people. I was like, but what if we did this? And what if we did this? And I'm not being an arsehole, but I'm pretty knowledgeable. So it's like, well, and there's like this 14-year-old classically autistic kid, right? Who had his toenails removed in 2023 because he got infections in them through various reasons to do with autism and other things. And I'm sat there, and there's three people from Barnsley 0 to 19. These just told you what he is. It said there's nothing for him. That's not a lie. That's the truth. I wrote it down. I was like, I can't
Right, I've
believe
been
this.
there, I've been there with his youngest. Well, we can't do anything for him now. We should have come earlier. When we were reaching, what we were asking for help all that time, he should have come earlier, and then we might have been able to do something.
It
Well, it's
was
a bit
like,
late now. Yeah,
they were okay. It's just like, you should have come when he was 10. He were fine when he was 10. It's now, he's still only 14. It's a 0 to 19 service. And I am being told it's too late. Uh, so it says here, work in partnership with other helpers. So now, what? Just I am talking about my own thing. What I don't understand is that, like, you've got the navigators, the health navigators who are now health advisors, and I met with them. They seem like really nice guys. The people that I met, and online for a referral. And and I were like I were frustrated because no health people turned up to his EHCP review like 5, 6 weeks ago. And they said to me, these two navigators advisors said, "Oh, we go and knock on doors and we're quite effective." I was like, "So you're advocates, like so you're basically telling services they need to pull the socks up." That's what I heard. If they're not, we'll not leave any stone uncovered. And I'm like, but why is it? Don't you see that the culture of your job is counter counterintuitive? Why have we got to a point where we're accepting that we need to have another service that goes door knocking and represents parent? And I said, by the way, isn't that what an EHCP team should do? Shouldn't the EHCP team should be the biggest advocates of our SEND children in the borough?
yes, absolutely, yeah,
They should
yeah,
they should be shouting from the rafters to the schools, you need to treat these children right. That's what assessment and review officers used to do when they first come in. When you
yeah,
had a
yeah,
statement of child, they phoned the school up and said, "What are you doing? You're not looking after this kid." Now they phone the school up and say, "You've got Johnny Wainwright come in. He's all right now, bed." So, um, yeah, and then they put Sendias, and I don't get it. So Barnes and Sendias give free and impartial advice to help young people. We also help parents and carers of children and young people. So I understand, but I don't know why that. I just don't get why that's on a service that you can use when you're waiting for your autism assessment. I don't get it, James. I don't get it. Help with early mental health, home, chili pet. I don't know, man.
that sticks with me. That sticks with
Targeted.
me, and the reason why that sticks with me is because when um our youngest were kind of really, really struggling, and we were kind of trying to get him back into CAMS. Yeah, what we then got told is, oh, it's not his mental. That's nothing to do with that's his autism. That's his autism, not his mental health. So what? Hang on. So he can't have mental health issues because he's autistic. Oh no, that's his autism. You're gonna have to. Well, who do I go and see? Well, not us. You know what I mean? Yeah. So he's not. He can't have anxiety or depression or. No, no, no. That's his autism. That's all badged up under autism. So where do I go and see about the fact he's kind of locking himself in his room and not coming out? Well, it's not us. We can't do anything for him.
Autism is him. That is him.
Yeah,
That is who he is. He's
absolutely.
an artistic young person. This is what does my head
Yes,
in.
yeah,
Like, when you go to a garage and like there's an engine light on and they get the laptop out, these like right they know stuff about and they like stick it in and they're like looking at data and they say, oh, it's your head gasket or
diagnostics. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah.
it's like that. It feels like they're doing that. So it was a plug a cleaning ticket and say, what she says wrong. It's like there, yeah. Oh yeah, that's his autism and that. Yeah, 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 yeah. We'll change that. And as if people can be decoded, that it's all separate. That comorbidity, as I'm very passionate about comorbidity, things
Yeah,
that
yeah,
run along,
absolutely.
it's not recognized. It's
No,
just not recognized.
no,
I'm conscious of time. I want to finish on. Is that what you want to finish on, James? Because I've got one thing I want to
no,
finish on.
no, no. I'll let you go. I will let you rip.
Right. This is like a little thing. So I've
That's
noticed
gone.
recently that that Jamie Oliver is taking the bull by the horns with dyslexia. Yeah.
Yes,
Right.
yeah, yeah. Good on him. Yeah,
Good on him. Yeah. Absolutely good on it. And you look at how difficult it is for children and young people with dyslexia. And I
yeah,
just wanted
yeah,
to
yeah.
I wanted, and now it's often not recognized, often not diagnosed. Once it is diagnosed, it's not treated with the seriousness that it needs to be treated with, how much it can impact you. One of there's a parent that I know, and we've been on a roller coaster in terms of our relationship and how we've viewed each other and such like, and got on and fallen out, and all these things, which is healthy, I believe. And that parent has always banged the drum of dyslexia, and that parent will promise by a manager at the local authority that they would develop a pathway, and she could be part of that, developing that
Yes,
pathway.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I genuinely, even at that point, I had my differences. We're not really at that point now, but I had my differences. But I would genuinely, no matter what differences I had with that person at that time, not now, I was genuinely pleased because I thought she'll take this and she'll do it properly. She'll get a working group and it'll be advertised and it'll be done properly. And she was given the absolute strong. I've seen the emails, the strongest. She was told it was going to happen. A pathway. We're going to develop a pathway for dyslexia in the borough. We're going to really do a piece of co-production and built her up, and then just dropped her. And she kept emailing saying, where is it? And one of the responses that come back is really busy with the safety valve issues and sorting safety valves, and it just got shelved. And here we are now 2 years later, or 20 months later, and Jamie Oliver's going to come and he's going to make a difference. I know he is. And I think to myself, and I think, God, we could have been on map. We could have been
Mm.
on map,
Yeah, yeah,
but instead, this parent was built up and knocked down, and it just makes me sad. It
yeah.
just makes me sad. And I know a similar thing were done with they were promising a Down syndrome pathway, and I've got my hesitations about the logic name of that, but fundamentally, what it were is parents who care about Down syndrome, whether you've got differences with them or not, they wanted to have a clear route, a, a travel for kids with Down syndrome, and that's not come to fruition. People who complained about me, people who were encouraged and debatable on other levels to complain. I know everybody's name now who complained about it. They were all promised so much, James, and they were just ditched. And that's where we're at. And it really struck a chord with me seeing this last couple of weeks with Jamie Oliver, and I thought he's going to make a difference because he made a difference with. I'm not his biggest fan in the world, but I know he'll make a difference. He'll work.
Mm.
He'll do something. And uh, and this
So,
is the thing going back to that's why I triggered it with comorbidity is that There's all sorts of things running alongside each other, and you can't just turn around and say, "Oh, that's his autism." That's the. It's absolutely ridiculous.
Mm.
And the fact that we haven't got a learning disability pathway where it can just be generic learning disabilities because they don't want it to be so vague. But what we're willing to see is the numbers of autism perhaps rise more when in actual fact it might just be a learning disability
Yeah, yeah,
or what
absolutely.
or see mental health rise because we didn't diagnose learning disability. Something's not right, mate. Well, I know, and and I will be shocked if Ofsted don't pick up on it and CQC don't pick up on it when they come. I'll be both shocked and very concerned.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I think
Tell
we're
us about
back on tomorrow, aren't we? We're
yeah.
back
Tell
on
us about
tomorrow. We're
it.
going to try. Yeah.
What's happening?
We're back on tomorrow. I think we've got young Kerry coming on. Is that right?
Well,
Talk about her
yeah, that
experiences. Yeah.
yeah. And
Parent
is
of
she?
a VI young lad and another young lad who's got special educational needs. Just nice to talk to her, see what her journey's been like.
Well, I'm really excited to listening. I'm about listening to what her experiences are. And I would like to say, anybody watching, and we will advertise it, we are, we can talk, obviously, both of us, but we really, really want to have parents as lived experience. And it's casual. It's not, we are as we are. We're not
Yeah,
editing.
yeah,
We're not
yeah,
doing, and, we'd love to have more parents come on and talk to us, just me and you know.
yeah.
And,
I think it's important. I think it's important. You know what I mean? With yeah,
but
all
we don't
got
want
different experiences.
the last thing that I want to, we've got to get off. We've got to get off and get established with things. We've got to get our, we're here to campaign and we're here to highlight things. That's what we've got to do because we want
Yeah,
no one will open the door to parents. But the fact is that we don't want to be here sat talking. We want to be here sat listening and asking questions
yeah,
because there's nothing more interesting than people.
yeah.
And
Hey, listen. Also, it's not just parents. If there's any professionals out there who feel like
absolutely.
they want to call teachers want to come on and kind of share your experience. You know what I mean? We know it's not one sided. It's um, yeah. Come on and you know what I mean. We'll have a frank and honest chat. I think it's the way forward. I think this is the only way we're going to be able to do it. It's
We
nice
can,
having the headline grabbing criticisms in it, you know what I mean, and kind of getting and whipping up a bit of emotion to kind of move it forward. But I think we've passed that now. Yeah,
have we still got that them disguises if any professionals want to come on? Like
yeah.
you have a black hood and that you just
The
put
zig
over.
and zag mask.
Gonna end up
Yeah,
looking like an hostage situation in it.
I've got a wicked teacher mask. Yeah,
But like
yeah. All
Scooby-Doo.
joke. No,
We could
yeah, all joking to one side. I think it's important. You know what I mean? Or if you want to put any comments up or share anything that you want us to read out, you know what I mean? We're here to have the conversations.
Oh, definitely. I want to have fun. That the one thing that we always did with the alliance is we had fun. You can discuss serious things, but we can have fun. And it's like, any retired professionals or people who are not at risk, it's great. And, or whatever, we've got to have the conversations because the conversations will make the changes. That's it. And,
Yeah,
and the more you
yeah,
suppress people, the more you push people down, the more they'll pop up somewhere else. And
yeah,
you see that in politics. If you
yeah, yeah,
stop people's voice, they'll find another route. And it might not be a route that they originally wanted to go down, but they'll find a route. But yeah, I digress. And we can do a Scooby-Doo reveal at end if it's a professional. And I got away with it if it weren't for those pesky Johnny and Jimmy. Tie him up. I'm joking. It's a joke. But yeah, are we going, James? I think I might go and have a bite to eat. Actually, I'm a bit
Aye,
peckish.
that sounds like a master plan, but yeah, yeah, a good one again, right? All
Right,
right. Tomorrow
Vicky,
at the same time, 8 o'clock.
look forward to. To be honest with you, I'm sick of listening to you. If I'm being honest.
Well, you do all the talking.
See you later,
Hey,
buddy.
I'm off. You're boring me now. I'm going. Right, see you in a bit.